Hi everyone, I hope you're doing well. Today I wanted to talk about an interesting game called The Cycle Frontier. It's a first-person looter shooter with PvP and PvE mechanics. The game is in beta playtest until November 8th, 2021, and the plan is for it to be released sometime in 2022. At present, the game is only available on PC, although information from the developers does suggest that it may at some point come to console too. The game began life as a battle royale, but has had a complete rework by the German developer Jaeger. The game is no longer a battle royale and now takes on an interesting twist. You are a prospector, and when you hit play, you instantly load into a 6-hour persistent server where players will load in and out throughout that time. The aim is to loot what you can, kill what you must, both human players and AI alike, and get out with your life and loot intact. If you die, you lose everything you have on your person, so deaths are very punishing. This might sound very familiar because this is identical to the way that games like Escape from Tarkov work, but in contrast to EFT, this game is much more jump in and play. It's far easier to learn, but still enough of a challenge that it's very satisfying to master. The progression in the game centres around 3 factions: ICA, Korolev and Osiris. Each faction will give you contracts to perform, which usually involves collecting items, killing creatures or players, or stashing items somewhere. As you progress, you unlock more challenging contracts, but with better rewards. You can only progress 1 contract with each faction at once, so 3 total contracts at any one time. However, there's nothing to stop you hoarding loot and then instantly handing in some of the contracts as and when they become available to you. As you complete the contracts from each faction, you gain reputation and money called K-marks from each of the factions. You'll also be rewarded with scripts, which are a type of token which helps you to upgrade your quarters, which I'll explain more about a little later on. Rep with each faction is independent, so you don't have to pick one faction to level. You complete contracts from all 3 factions. Leveling up your reputation grants access to purchase better weaponry from each faction, and all of the weaponry has its own unique benefits and style of play. Part of the game progression is also to upgrade your quarters. If you played Escape from Tarkov, then think of this like your hideout. You collect materials as you play the game, and you combine those materials with the scripts I mentioned earlier, which are earned from completing faction contracts, and this will improve various aspects of how you play the game. For example, you can create a passive K-mark income generator to give you a flow of K-marks even whilst you're offline, and you can increase your inventory space for storage of items, and you can increase your safe pocket storage, and again, more on the safe pocket a little later on. So as for the actual gameplay, the first thing you need to do is select your loadout from your inventory, so you need to gear up your character. These will be the items which you deploy into the game with. You can just take your knife, but I recommend at least taking a basic weapon, some ammunition to use with that weapon, some medication so that you can heal, taking some armour and a helmet and a backpack. You then select which map you want to play on, the easier Bright Sands map or the more challenging Crescent Falls, the latter of which has better loot. When you hit deploy, you will load almost instantly into a game. You can deploy with up to 2 friends for a total squad of 3, but regardless of how many are in your squad, you'll be in the game with other groups of potentially up to 3 players, so you need to play accordingly. Once you do deploy, you'll drop into a semi-random location on the map you've selected. You will also see 2 red markers on your map, which represent your extraction points. You will always have 2 to choose from. The aim is simply to head to your extraction, completing any contracts you can on the way, picking up any additional loot you want to take with you, and trying not to die to AI creatures and players which will attack you as you work through the map. It's worth noting that you do have a safe pocket in the cycle. It has limited space but can be upgraded at your quarters. This pocket is very useful for stashing high value or contract items because you'll keep the items from this pocket even if you die. So don't forget to use it. An interesting quirk to the gameplay of the cycle is that the game does have in-game voice comms, so it's entirely possible to engage verbally with other players in the game, even not in your group, and maybe even form an alliance or at the very least call a ceasefire. Once you make it to your extraction location, the final hurdle is to call in your extraction ship. This is loud and other players in the area will know you're trying to leave, so prepare to defend yourself. Once you are out, offload your loot into your safe stash, hand in your completed contracts, and prepare to go again. As for weapons and balance in the game feels in a good spot. To access the best weapons, you have to craft them from very rare resources. Some of these sources I've not even seen or come across in over a week and a half of playing. So if you do manage to get one of these weapons, I imagine you'll be a monster on the battlefield, but if you slip up and die, then the stakes are going to be very high. The middle ground weapons also feel sufficiently powerful to beat the basic starter weapons, but the mid-tier guns are not cheap to purchase from the factions. If you lose too many of them, then you will find yourself struggling with your in-game economy. The weapon modding in the game is also interesting. You could add attachments to all of the weapons in the game. There are a variety of attachments offering different benefits to how the weapon handles, and there are different tiers and rarities of these attachments. The higher the tier, the more noticeable the effect will be on the weapon they're attached to. As you'd expect, damage from weapons is modified and mitigated by a number of factors, such as the armor level of the person being shot and the penetration stat on the weapon being used, as well, of course, as the base damage of the gun. All of these factors should be considered against the risk that you could be killed in game and lose it all. As I mentioned earlier, the game is currently in a beta playtest stage, and it's scheduled to release in 2022. Access to the beta is available on Steam and Epic, but you'll have to register to join a queue for access. Access is still being provided in places where server populations are not high, but the other way to gain access is by obtaining a key from streamers or content creators who may have been provided some to give away. I do have some keys to give away on my Twitch channel, where I stream most days of the week and weekend, so follow the link to my Twitch in the description, where I'll be giving away keys live on stream until I run out. As for how the game feels and my thoughts on the beta, it is really very good for the stage the game is at. There's the occasional bug, some minor rubber banding on the servers, but this is mainly when out of combat, and the combat itself seems to work flawlessly. It feels smooth, it's well synchronized, and the servers don't seem to be restricted by region, as I've been able to play with friends half the world away, and the lags still seem minimal. The game, as you'd expect of a beta, does need some polish here and there and a few quality of life improvements, but the absolute core gameplay feels really good, and I think now that it's a question of how much more traction the game can get through word of mouth and advertising, the game could be a big hit. I think the biggest question right now is, what about the end game? I've not got there yet, or I don't think I have, but to keep players interested on release, I think there needs to be some end game content to aim for. It could be that this is just not implemented in the beta. It does look like there is another map to be introduced at some point, which is not accessible in the beta. And the station where you access your inventory and the factions seems plenty big enough to house more factions or other traders or hubs, which could add content going forward. It also seems like there will be a paid battle pass on release, which makes sense as the game is set to be free to play when it does release in 2022. Hopefully the battle pass will offer cosmetic items and no pay to win mechanics. This should allow the developers to continue to earn an income from the game to push on with development as a live service, and I think this is a positive step. So for those looking for my overall opinion on the game and whether it's worth playing, I say absolutely. I fully plan to play this game through until the beta ends on November 8th, 2021. I also intend to play the game when it releases and beyond then. I'm really interested to see how the cycle develops over the coming months and hopefully coming years too. Thanks for watching everyone, I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I'll be producing more content on the Cycle Frontier and the other games I enjoy playing. So if you think you'll enjoy this, then please feel free to subscribe, which will help me massively in building this channel. I also stream daily on Twitch, and you can find a link to my channel in the description of this video. I'll be playing the Cycle and lots more right there. Thanks so much everyone, I'm always really grateful for your support. I'll see you all soon.